Hello, hello. Welcome. Thank you for sharing another episode of Grief Heals with me. I'm excited to share with you what is coming today. You're going to get to hear about a very special man who has since left his skin suit to enter another realm, another form of existence, another form of life. And you'll get to hear about the life that he shared with Heidi and his boys, and yeah, just the way that came about. So that's how I introduced the episode, is talking about how it came about. So today I'll just say my hubby is in the hospital again, and he is due to have literally the identical surgery that he had 1 month ago. He's going to be having that again tomorrow. It is a back surgery, and then we will start this healing process all over again. I guess when you have this type of herniated disc, it is very vulnerable in that beginning stage of recovery. And so it's like it ruptured, herniated. Is there a difference? Again, and we'll be needing the exact same surgery. So that is one of the things going on in my life. I'm also going to be out of town a lot of July and getting to do some wonderful things. So I am excited about that. Let's see. I am going to ask that you like and share this podcast with other people and just enlarge the conversation together. And is there anything else? Maybe we could take a breath together, recognizing that we breathe the same air. Our breath is just so necessary. Is that the obvious or what? And yet, often just we go without giving a whole lot of attention to our breath, or even breathing in more deeply, consciously retraining to breathe in more deeply. So maybe we could practice that again, just taking a nice big inhale through the nose and allowing ourselves to notice how the belly fills, how the whole body fills with air. Exhaling and noticing as the air escapes, and then returning to just the regular rhythm of breathing and noticing how we are in fact being breathed. Let yourself just do whatever feels good to give yourself an ounce more comfort. And yeah, so I hope you enjoy hearing about Phillip David as much as I did. And may you be encouraged, may you be enlivened, may you recognize our oneness, and have a listen. Welcome to another episode of Grief Heals, the podcast where we explore how it is that grief heals us with our relationship with ourselves, with one another, and our whole wide world. I am your host, Lisa Michelle Zega, and I am excited to have another conversation. Just taking a deep breath. So I was working and I felt compelled to take a break, get outside, get my feet in the soil, walk my dog. And I was out there just having a good, alone, slow, contemplative experience. And part of what was happening too is there are just some things that I'm navigating in business, some uncertainty, and I was just trying to get centered, right? And my dog, Bella Blue, she saw one of her absolute favorites. And oh my gosh, all of a sudden I wanted to call this dog Bruno. Oh, I was like, I lost his name. And the reason is because Bella's got two great friends that are labradoodles or golden doodles. I don't know the difference. Regardless, one is brown, that's Murphy. One is black, that's Bruno. And Bella saw Bruno, and they have not seen each other in a minute. And they started going crazy. And so Heidi, Bruno's owner, graciously brought him to the dog park so that our dogs could enjoy one another. And when I asked Heidi what has been happening in her world since we last saw one another, what she told me and what prompted this episode is she talked to me about Phillip David. And Phillip David is the biological father of her firstborn. And she told me that he recently died May 26th. And she began telling me stories about him. And I was so moved and so honored to just be hearing about this man. And I'm eager to tell you just a few of the things that I learned and to reflect together on how it is that grief heals, on how it is that grief is love, on what grief asks of us, what grief gives to us, this wonky, mysterious, complicated, sometimes conflicting experience, often conflicting, I'll say, of grief and love. So she began just, I don't even know how it started, y'all, but here's some of the things that I am holding in my heart, and so eager to share. So I mentioned that he was the father of her firstborn. And she was telling me how impactful his memorial service was and all the lives that he touched. And as the story unfolded, she basically shared that he was the father to 3 boys. Her second son, who has a different biological father, and her nephew. Oh my gosh. So what she shared is that in the beginning, I'm just thinking about how I share this and what I have permission to share. So let me just start here. He became father to these other boys because he would go to pick up his son, and he noticed that her other son was not getting picked up and would be left home alone. And he's like, no, you're my son's brother. That means you're my boy too. And you got to get in, come with. And she was telling me how at his funeral, her second son talked about how Dad David, that's what he called him, how Dad David taught him what it was to be a real man. That though he wasn't his father by birth, he chose him, Phillip David chose him as his son, and this young man chose Phillip David as his dad. And he said that when he first started picking him up, it was hard for him as a kid because it was his brother's dad, and he didn't want him as his own dad. But this man, Phillip David, earned his respect and his honor and eventually the title as dad in his life. And she told me that her nephew, now this is her nephew, Heidi's nephew, he lost his own father to suicide when he was 5 years old. And he actually is the one who found his dad's body. And Phillip David, when he would pick up his boy, what became his boys, he would also, knowing what happened for this other young guy pick him up too. And they were all about a year apart. And well, I guess a year between the younger two boys and 2 years between the middle boy and the oldest. And he just take them places and invest in them. And when he died, he made sure that what he had was gifted to these three boys. And when she was telling me, like, there was so much grief, so much loss, even in the stories she was sharing prior to his death, right? The loss of the one boy's dad by suicide, the loss of one boy's dad by abandonment, I'm gonna say. He'd left. And she was telling me that in the beginning, she didn't want Phillip David spending time alone with her son because at the time he was in his addiction. And she told him, I want you in his life. I do. And you're not in a place where you're safe for him. If you take care of yourself, I will support you seeing your son. And it took him a minute, you know, because why do we go into our addictions? Because of pain, right? And this man, Phillip David, courageously entered help in leaving his addiction so that he could show up for his boy. And for years and years following that, he thanked Heidi and he thanked his son for giving him a reason to face the difficult challenges of getting help. And she was saying that at his funeral, so many people came and spoke to honor this man. And I just could feel the weight of his loss for these guys, these young men who are now in their early 20s. And also for all of us. And okay, one of the things that impacted me about this guy that just seems so worthy of honor is that it's like he saw that we were one. He saw these boys were connected to his son, and so they were connected to him, and so he invested in them and he spent time with them and he modeled for them love. And I can't help but believe, knowing what I know about the human condition, that as he sought sobriety, which allows and often ushers in so much of our pain to be felt and experienced, that as he brought love to his own suffering, he was able to bring love to the suffering of these boys. And, you know, she told me stories because there's something in my mind where I'm like, hey, people in addiction bring love too, and they do. And anytime our pain is so present that we're trying to make it unpresent, we lose ourselves, we get further away from ourselves, and we get further away from those that we love, right? And the essence of who we are is still there. It's always there, no matter what happens to us and no matter what we do. There's a part of us that can't help but shine through. And one of the things she told me was that even in his addiction, he was so committed. He just wanted to see his son and bring him gifts, and you could see his generous heart always. And she was saying that at his funeral, so many people spoke. He sponsored so many people in AA and in NA, and many of those people spoke, and everybody was learning things about this person, and ways he invested in other people that they didn't even know. They didn't know. His own sons didn't know. And as Heidi talked, we just cried together. We honored him together. We just felt him together. We celebrated him together. It is so good. I mean, it is so good, like the way that we can connect in our joy and the way that we can connect in our pain. And I just felt like, wow, I want to come and I want to share. I want to say something about this man because we're all connected. And the way that he loved into this world benefited me, even though I never ever met him, and benefited you, even though you don't know him. And if you're asking how, because that word came into my mind, there's one way in which I want to say, I don't know. And there's another way in which I want to say liberation for one is liberation for all. And I also want to say slavery for one is slavery for all. Like, this is why it matters that we recognize that we're all connected. Like, when we send love, it matters. It always matters. It always matters because we're literally investing and planting into the cosmos, into the world in which we live, into one another. And likewise, my girlfriend sent me this reel today, and it was like some woman, I don't know who, she was interviewing a Trader Joe's employee, and the woman asked, like, hey, have you noticed, this isn't the phrase she used, but let's just say a common denominator between your coworkers and those who come in to the shop, to the store. And he said, yeah. He basically said that, how did he word it? Essentially, when we are stressed out, no, when we're thinking about ourselves, we're in fear. And when we are in fear, we can't love. When we are in a hurry and stressed out, when we're in a hurry, we can't love, right? Because when we're in a hurry, all we're doing is focusing on ourselves. And when we're focused on ourselves, we are in fear, right? And when we're in fear, we can't love. And he basically said, we all just need to slow down, that we might love one another, that we might become present to one another. And I was thinking about that and thinking about all the things vying for our time and all the systems in place to keep us hurried and frenzied and not present. And how difficult it is in our world to genuinely slow down. And maybe that's what was the impetus, maybe that was part of the impetus of me saying, you know what, I can feel all these conflicting things and concerns about the business. And right now, what I need is to slow down. And, addressing addiction, my brain is reaching for all the threads and seeking to tie things in a bow. And I know that you're smart, and I know that you're going to tie things and bring them together in the way that makes sense in your body, which is literally perfect. And I do recognize being in my own addiction, it just keeps me frenzied and separated, fragmented. And slowing down to hear my one true self also is to become present to all that is alive in me, right? And sometimes I don't want to know all that's alive in me. At this stage of life, I tend to want to know a lot more. I tend to trust what I find a lot more. Maybe because I trust that when I become present to my pain, it's always showing me where love was denied, where love is needed, where love is wanted. It's always showing me the places that need to be held. This is why. This is how maybe I came to the conclusion that grief really is love. Yeah. So maybe I just leave it here for now. How about I invite us all to do this? Take a gentle scan, becoming aware of the sensations in your body. I feel a lot of energy in my hips. Just begin to give attention to whatever you find without needing to fix, advise, or save that part of you, just trusting that your body is working with you and for you. Your body is holding you, and you are holding your body. And bring breath into that place. I'm bringing breath and awareness into my hips, trusting that in doing so, I'm also allowing love to get to this place that is holding me, that I am also holding. I found myself instinctively just rubbing this area. And maybe we can give a gentle bow to Phillip David, honoring him and all the ways that he has sown into humanity, helping us all to become just a little more acquainted with the divine humans that we are. Maybe we can give a bow to ourselves for all the ways that we invest in ourselves and in one another, recognizing together that we breathe the same air. And if you're willing, maybe we can wrap our arms around not only ourselves, also one another, also Heidi's boys who are experiencing the loss of their dad. Maybe we can all recognize together that we are holding and we are also held. And maybe you'll consider with me how it is that grief heals. Until next time, I'm just sending so much love.
You've been listening to Grief Heals with Lisa Michelle Zega. The podcast is produced by me, Eric Simpson, in association with Jump Up and Down Productions. Music by Ken Dalian, Drunken Nights to Sunday Mornings, and Stefan Carlin, A Calming Ocean, A Common Notion. If you would like more information about the work Lisa does, point your browsers to legityou.com. That's LEGITYOU. Lisa can also be reached at lisamichelle@legityou.com. This has been a Jump Up and Down production.